These last few years have made us question everything. Our relationships, our jobs, what constitutes an office, and who we are. In a world filled with chaos, confusion, and uncertainty, it's time for some clarity. It's time to start understanding one another. It's time to start understanding ourselves. We envision a world where everyone knows their why. But even more, we envision a world where everyone knows their WHY.os. Their why, their how, and their what. The operating system that drives you, that lets the world know where you stand, what your unique gift is, and most importantly, who you are. WHY.os. Are you ready?
Hey, I love that. Are you ready at the end of that? So I cannot wait to introduce you to today's guest on Why Not Wednesday, Deseri Garcia. She is a passionate coach, a facilitator, and a speaker with nearly 20 years experience in corporate America. She implements creative, experiential, and personalized programs that challenge, motivate, and transform her clients. Her tireless pursuit of possibility gets results. Tangible, solid proof of purchase outcomes. So whether it's through a half-day workshop, a one-on-one session, or an extended training designed to your business's specific goals, Deseri will lead you and your team on an adventure of a lifetime, uncovering individual potential, your truth. And isn't that what the journey is all about? I am so excited to introduce you all to Deseri Garcia. Welcome to the show, Deseri.
Thanks so much, Dan. It's
Hey,
great
you've
to be
got a
here.
great background song. I want to make sure to play it for everybody. Let's see here. And let's see if I can figure this out. Here we go. So I asked you about your background song.
Yeah,
Kenny
an
Loggins.
oldie but goldie. Some people will know this is my fly song. They'll know what that means.
Well, I hope there are a lot of your people listening. Great song. Hey, why don't we start with that question? What a great song. Why that song, Desiree? We had a couple to choose from, but that was
Yeah.
the one you chose.
Well, it's called Conviction of the Heart.
Yeah.
And for me, that song was actually, it was a song that was given to me in a transformational leadership work that I was doing. And it fit, even though I didn't quite know yet what my journey was going to be in terms of coaching and training and development, it fit because I just had this conviction of the heart to make an impact.
Yeah.
So,
And doesn't that fit right with your why of contribute? You wanted to make an impact, the conviction of the heart. So as we do this every week, Desiree, I like to start with the first question I like to ask our guests is, hey, let's go over your why operating system. So your why is to contribute,
right.
make an impact, contribute to the success of others, contribute to a greater cause. Your how is to make sense of the complex and challenging. That means you're a problem solver. You like to help people get unstuck. And your what is simplify. You deliver things that are simple and easy to implement. How did that fit you when we went? It's been a while since we did it, but how did that feel to you when we went through it?
It felt like home. It made complete sense to me, given the work that I like to say I get to do it.
Oh, I love that.
Because I love what I get to do and to be able to come alongside people and be a contribution to them, their greater cause.
Yes. You know what? I love you. I love that you said that because I tell people all the time that the reason I have energy, people that say, Dan, every time I talk to you, you look like you got unlimited energy. And I bet it's the same with you, Desiree. I get to live my why every single day. You and I share contribute and make sense. I'm contribute, challenge, makes sense. Your contribute, makes sense, simplify. But every day I get to do this in my work. And every day you make a difference in the people, in the lives of others. Every day you help people get unstuck and make sense of what's going on in their lives. And then every day you deliver simple solutions.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I feel incredibly blessed to get to live out my WHY.os. Like, how freaking cool is that?
Yeah, it is. And it's an understanding. And we have a video we play when we're doing trainings about Michael Jr. and a music teacher, and he sings, and then he sings from his why, and it's so different.
Yeah.
The way he sings is different,
I
and
love that video.
the way the audience reacts is
Right.
different. People react to you differently when you're living your why. Look at all our old friends are here, Des. I got to say hello to Jennifer. I got to say hello to David. David, we got to get together again soon. And then Watson Jordan, I told you he'd be on, so
You did.
he's here. Simone is one of our new coaches from north of the border, so welcome, Simone. And I love that Jennifer showed up. So we got a lot of stuff going on today, but you know, this is about you. I want to make sure we talk about your why, and how has your why of contribute played out in your life. You know, you've got an amazing background in corporate America, but also you got a sports background and a marathoning background. When did contribute, making a difference, become important to you?
Wow. That's a great question. I would say that I was probably a contributor at birth, but I, obviously did not have the language to put there. And even Dan, my journey through corporate America before I started coaching and leadership development, I was in contribute, right? I was contributing to the mission, vision, our greater cause in that organization.
Right.
For me, the shift came when I realized that although that was a beautiful vision, it wasn't mine.
Right.
And so where contribute really came to life was when I was able to figure out what was the best way for me to contribute, what resonated in my heart.
Yeah.
And it was having a greater impact on people rather than, I was in transportation and logistics. And I will jokingly say, it's not that I didn't care any longer about giving people sleep at night confidence that their freight was getting from one part of the world to another, but I really don't give a flip. That's not how I contribute.
Right.
And I say that in jest because that's an important part of like our economy. But for me, there's nothing better on the planet than seeing someone light up and see their purpose and make steps towards what matters to them.
Right.
Out of their own.
And get out of their own way, right?
Yeah.
Gosh, I love that. You know, Des, you've got as we talked about a couple of things in your background I want to make sure and talk about. So you were a lacrosse player.
Yeah.
In college on a women's team. So one of the things that I know about athletes, when I was in corporate and I was hiring people, I always loved hiring athletes, and I always loved hiring former military, because two things that I knew I was going to get is people that knew how to set a goal and achieve it, and they were going to follow the plan. If we coached them right, if you're the right coach, they were going to get things done. What's your biggest lesson you think you bring from that lacrosse experience, working on a team, a high performing team like that you still use today?
Oh my gosh, I have hundreds of lessons. What's interesting, Dan, is I was a speed skater growing up.
Really?
I call myself a leg sport person. I happened to be running on campus at Ball State, and someone on the lacrosse team was like, "This chick's running all the time. We need to ask her if she wants to play lacrosse." And I'm like, "Well, what? I'm from Indiana. It wasn't a big sport back then. It is now, but definitely East Coast." And what the biggest lesson was, here I was a freshman in college, and I
Yeah.
learned how to play lacrosse. And so the lesson is stretching yourself and learning, being willing to put yourself out there and have, courage, and to really suck at a sport, which I wasn't accustomed to, and figure out how to play and be, I ended up being on the Midwest national team, and just formed some, talk about hiring athletes, formed some of the most meaningful friendships and relationships. And to me, I think any type of sport, really, even if you're maybe it's music or art, when you
Right.
stretch yourself beyond what you thought you could do, there's incredible power in that. And it's like, if I can do that here, then I can do it in my business. I
Right.
can do it in this relationship. I can do it in this, thing that's not going so well. And so it taught me tenacity and courage, and that I can fall down and get back up.
Well, one of the things you mentioned during that story, you had the courage to suck. And so many people are afraid of doing things because they're not good at it. I mean, for all you know, you were a good runner, but you don't know how that was going to translate to lacrosse. And you knew you were
Right.
going to start probably at the bottom of the depth chart, right?
Mhm.
You weren't the star player that got recruited to play lacrosse at Ball State. You got brought in because somebody saw you and said, "Hey, let's get her on the team." That transformation has to be something that you can still probably share with your clients as they embrace the suck, as we talk about, right?
Right.
Because we're nobody's born an expert at anything.
That's exactly right. And, Dan, so my it's how do I solve complex and challenging problems?
Right.
So many times, the individuals and or the teams that I'm working with, there are complex hows, like they're tactically, I can't coach them on anything that they're,
You got it.
CEOs and engineers and PhD. And I cannot tell you tactically how to be successful in your role, but
Right.
it's the how where people get tripped up. And so being able to identify, hey, if things were going great
Right.
with all the relationships that you have and the work that you're doing, you wouldn't need to have courage to try to make changes. Right. And so,
Right.
that journey just, it is a really great example of how, being able to fall down and get back up, great story to share. And everybody has a journey of like, hey, I'm going to do something I've never done before. And
Mhm.
everyone has many examples of that. And
Yeah.
so then you just leverage those experiences to help people to do things they haven't done before, to get to places they haven't gone.
Well, you're taking me. I love this because Desiree is just like the perfect guest. She's just taking me to my next question. So let's talk about your biggest why not moment. Tell us about a time you said why not, and there's probably a lot of moments in your life. Someone as accomplished as you. Think about a big one though. One thing when you said, "Hey, you know what? Why not? Why not do this?"
Yeah.
And you're so glad you said that.
Yeah. Well, DG and I were talking about this today at lunch.
DG, I'm jealous. You're
As
going to
in
lunch with Desiree,
big,
and here I
yeah.
am in Albuquerque.
My biggest one, and I've been blessed to have many, was deciding to make the transition from corporate America and starting my business.
Yeah.
And y- you know, I I feel like it was something I had to do when I
Right.
realized that the pain of staying was greater than the pain of leaving.
Right.
It was time to go. And it was I was like, why not do this?
Yeah.
Let's say at the end of the year, if I'm sleeping on a friend's couch and eating ramen noodles, then I'll go back to corporate America.
Right.
So why not take the chance on, living my purpose?
Love that. And what's the biggest win? Now you did it. Now you can look back because we can't always connect the dots. As just Steve Jobs in his famous speech, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You always connect them looking back. What's
Right.
the best outcome you've seen from that?
Well, I wouldn't be here with you today
Yeah.
That's a pretty significant outcome. I mean, had I not said why not, I I could have had a somewhat fulfilling career doing what
Yeah.
I was doing. Um, and you know, you've quoted some greats, Mother Teresa, like if you can make the impact in one person's life, then your life has meaning. And
Right.
I have been blessed to make an impact in at least one person's life in
Oh,
a way that really resonates with my heart and soul. And so
absolutely. Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Got a couple of comments here. David Gregory said, I should be jealous, and I am, David. So I'm going to get you back on the show here soon. Jennifer said she's jealous. And Watson caught on the pain equilibrium. You touched on something that's so important. When the pain of staying is more than the pain that's going to be caused, the discomfort that's going to be caused by leaving,
right,
that's the time when you make that move. But you have to have a degree of courage.
you do. Yeah.
And
You got to be committed. Well, I think of what like Dan Sullivan says about the
yeah,
4 C's. You got to be committed to take the steps, have the courage to
yeah,
build the competency that gives you the confidence.
yeah.
You know, we like
And
to just say, "Oh, I have that competence," but it's like you got to back into the equation.
well, and you just said it. You got to build the competence, just like you built the competence to become a Midwest national team member from someone who walked onto the team or was offered a scholarship. I don't know how that worked out, but you weren't part of their plan. You came into that plan and you embraced it, built and built that competence so you could be competent at what you were doing.
Yeah, yeah. So again, right there has to we have to have a willingness to step
Yeah.
outside our comfort zones, to fall down, and say that's okay.
Well, tell me about Vida Aventura. I love the name of your company.
Thanks. I jokingly say, Dan, you know, I will tell people it means adventurous life, but I'm a Cuban from Fort Wayne. So I don't speak much, not, not, I
You're a
don't speak
Fort
much
Wayne Cuban. I love it. It
Spanish.
sounds like
Yeah.
a sandwich. We got to build the Fort Wayne Cuban. We got to find a deli in Fort Wayne to make
Right.
that for us.
Yeah, there may be. So again, you know, connecting to my why, um, I went when I was going through the phase of, gosh, the pain of staying seems greater
Mhm.
than pain of leaving. I whiteboarded, like, what are all the things that I love to do? And I left nothing off the board. It was like, I love to eat sushi,
Yeah.
ridiculous things. And
Yeah.
I started to move things around and I saw themes. And what popped off the whiteboard was making a difference in others' lives. And
Mhm.
at the time, I was also a multi-sport adventure racer.
Yes.
And so I was working with the team. I really understood team dynamics. It's like we either win as a team or we lose as a team, or we
Right.
either really get hurt as a team or we stay safe as a team.
Right.
So really learned a new level of team dynamics through adventure racing, and had also been doing some work on a ropes course. And so originally when I started Vida Aventura, I was doing coaching and team building.
Right.
And it naturally led into doing, I had several clients that said, can you come in and do leadership development for our organization? And like, let's partner. I think we can make that happen. And
Yeah.
it was a natural extension of the work that I was doing. Just like leading retreats with Amy. It's like it's a
Right.
natural extension of both of our lives.
You know, so you're taking my job, Des, and I'm going to be mad because I'm supposed to ask you about that. So Des is such a good guest. She knows what's coming next. That's exactly the next question I was going to ask you, because you do these amazing retreats with Amy Woodall, who I had the opportunity to meet, and I know so many of the people that were at your big retreat last year that I know David Gregory and I thought about. You know, we're going to just crash that party one of these days. It sounds like too much fun. Tell us about these retreats. What's the goal of the retreat? What do you get if you come on these Vida Aventura retreats with you and Amy?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, Dan, because I think they're high vibe tribe retreats, and
Yes.
it's we we build the retreat around yoga and meditation, and
Mhm.
right now the retreats are for women. If I were to simply define what the retreats are, as we, let's say market it out there, because
Mm-hmm.
it's different for every person. What they walk away with is
Yeah.
profound and it's individual. And I would say we create an environment where it's medicine for your body, mind, and your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so impactful for us to intentionally and deliberately take time for ourselves, especially as women,
Right.
and say, I'm gonna give this to myself. And yeah, I've got some things that I want to work out in my life, and we create that space for that to be able to happen.
I love that you brought that up because I have no problem. As a matter of fact, for those of you that are trying to get a hold of me in the next couple of days, I'm going to be out of the office because I'm playing golf for the next 3 days at our club's member guest, and I have no problem doing that. Whereas my wife has a hard time letting go of all the things she
Mm.
has to do.
Mhm.
And so you're right. As women, I think you have to almost learn to make that a priority. And
Yeah.
it's not in all male, all females. I think there are some men who have trouble prioritizing themselves. And I'm sure there are
Yeah.
women who have no problem taking time for themselves. But it's almost a learned behavior. I don't think we naturally do that. I think women naturally are nurturers and givers
Mhm.
and put themselves last. And then you have the added curse of, by the way, and I'm not going to even call it a curse because myself, you, David, Jennifer, we got a whole contributors retreat going on here. And I like the name of your retreats. The Vibe, tell me the name again, the Vibe
High
Tribe.
Vibe Tribe.
The High Vibe Tribe retreats. One of the things I love to say is when people discover their why and they start talking to the people and they know the why of the people around them, you find that you're surrounded by people with your why. Nikki's
Mm.
a contribute, right?
Mhm.
So you find that your vibe attracts your tribe is what one of our coaches said. I wish I could give her credit if I could remember the name, but she said, your why, you're going to find as people look at their dashboards, as they're working with their clients, that they have a high percentage of their own why in
Yeah.
their client base,
Mhm.
because you tend to attract people that believe what you believe,
Yeah.
that want to make a difference in the
Mhm.
lives of others.
Very true.
And so you vibe very well with them. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And Dan, you asked me about like starting my business.
Yeah.
When I was in corporate America prior to starting my business, as I looked around, like my, I'd say 3 or 4 of my closest friends
Yeah.
were living their why, and they had their own businesses.
Yeah.
And when I started the business 17 years ago, that wasn't as common,
Right.
as it is now. Entrepreneurship was still kind of a newer, I won't say newer, totally new concept, but it was like, wow, you're going to do your own thing,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, but that's a really great point. The people who were in my tribe were doing that, and so I think uh, it's incredibly insightful to be able to look around and say, who are the people that you surround yourself with, because that's a pretty good indication of the flow and what's going to be happening in your life.
So I know you're a Fort Wayne Cuban, Desiree, so you might not understand what I'm going to say, but my grandfather used to say, dime con quién andas y yo te digo quién eres. Tell me who you are with and I'll tell you who you are.
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
people that surround you kind of define you. And it's, Jim Rohn talks about it, right? He says you are the average of the 5 people you
Yeah,
spend the most
most
time
time
with.
with.
And so you want to spend time with great people. And you and I were talking in the pre-show about the importance of surrounding yourself with good people, and also taking that in and being choosy. You have you mentioned this quote, people for seasons or for a time, and people for life.
Mm-hmm.
And those people for life are so valuable. And the older we get, the less of those people we have, right?
Yeah, very
So
true.
tell me, it just came to me because I made the joke about it being a Fort Wayne Cuban. Was that a challenge growing up for you? You didn't look like the rest of the kids on the
Mhm.
playground, probably. Tell us about that and how that's built you.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dan, because I do a exercise when I'm leading teams through 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, and it's called personal histories. So the work is based on Patrick Lencioni's
Oh, yeah.
work from the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and the exercise is personal histories.
Yeah.
It's like, where'd you grow up? How many siblings do you have? What was a unique challenge of your childhood? And one of the things that was a unique challenge of my childhood was when I was probably four,
Mm-hmm.
ages birth to 4, we lived in a very diverse neighborhood for Fort Wayne.
Right.
We had Mexican family, there was us, Black family, there was another Scandinavian family. Well, I didn't know that we were in a diverse neighborhood. These were just our neighbors.
That's
These
sweet.
were our friends. And so we moved. And I think my parents, we moved to get into a different school system.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, we're the only brown kids running around in the neighborhood. And I remember some of the kids were told not to play with us.
Yeah.
And I think that it couple things happen. One, I learned to blend in, and I later had to work on that because
Mm-hmm.
I was like playing small, and I want to do big things in my life.
Yeah.
But I also learned, some of the challenge of being very different, and that, how do I start to form relationships with people who, for whatever reason, might have judgments against me.
Mm-hmm.
So I consider all of that a huge gift. I mean, just that
Yeah.
it taught me a lot.
Yeah, well, I think going through it helps you understand those that are going through it also, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm blessed to live in New Mexico where there are more brown people than white people, and it's so interesting because I've
Yeah.
lived in Kentucky and I've lived in Virginia, and I've lived in
Mhm.
places where you're not the majority. It's so different here, but you learn to understand how other people might feel when they're the minority. I've always been the one that kind of looks in the room and says, "Oh, that person I bet is not feeling comfortable.
Mhm.
Let's reach out to them." And I'm sure you probably do the same thing as a fellow contributor, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You
And
always
yeah, I think if you are a person in your difference, right? We're all
right.
so different. We're really actually so more alike than we are different. But if you happen to be a person who looks different for whatever reason, I
Mhm.
think that you do have a different level of connection and empathy for others that share that.
Yeah. There's a famous Abraham Lincoln quote that says, I don't I think he said, "I don't like that man. I should get to know him better."
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I
There's
have a
a
few friends that we're very opposite,
Mhm.
and they challenge me. Like I'm like, ah, but I love it because I want to keep that diversity of thought, and
Right.
it keeps me growing and learning too.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't know about you, what your experience has been. There are people that come in my life that I like them immediately. David Gregory was one of them, and I still like him, right?
Yeah,
But then there are other
Jif,
people that,
Jennifer Chapman,
of course, I
love
love
that girl.
Jennifer Chapman. I love Nikki, right? We have so many friends in
Absolutely.
common. But here's the thing, Amy Woodall, right? There's some people you meet them and you like them and you're like, wow, we vibe right away. And then there's some people who come in your life and you're like, oh, I don't know. But the more you know them, the more you like them. And I
Yeah.
love meeting those people
Mhm.
because I remember I go back and I'm like, oh gosh, he seems so pompous, or he seems so arrogant, or he seems so different from me. I didn't want to have anything to do with him. And now we're old friends. And I think it's giving people that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's giving them the opportunity, and boy, they're likely giving you the opportunity as well. I
Yeah.
love seeing when uh, a group of people that don't know each other well come together. And I'll
Yeah.
use our retreats as an example. You
Hmm.
know, often they don't know anyone. It's like one person who's come from wherever. And I mean, within a few short days, you would think that these women had known each other forever.
Right.
And no doubt, first glance, maybe first conversation, it's like, I don't know about this person.
Right.
But boy, if we just give others the opportunity, there can be something there in terms of a connection.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great connection. I cannot tell you that I've met anyone that Nikki has introduced me to through her organization or just through personal friendships that I don't like. I can tell you this has been one of my favorite interviews. I'm so glad to have spent some time with you, Des. If somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Gosh, my website, vidaaventura.net. So it's 2 A's.
VidaAventura.net. Hey, look at that.
Yeah, there it is.
Sunil is Johnny on the spot. VidaAventura.net. That's the best way to get a hold of Des. Des, this has been a great interview. What do you say we end on that note?
Perfect. Why not?
Why not, indeed. Thank you so much for being on. We have a great guest for you guys next week. Matthew Brackett is going to be on Why Not Wednesday. Des, we're so excited that you were here. I'm going to have you back. I know we're going to stay in touch, but
For sure.
we are looking forward to next week and looking forward to connecting more with your network. Guys, have a great week, rest of the week, and we'll see you next week on Why Not Wednesday.